What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to part two of the What Went Wrong with Leicester City this season. Make sure you click the first link in the description, which will be to the part one. This is a continuation of that. So, just to show you something that I literally found out halfway through, this was the table at this moment in time. So, we did the first 7 games, which puts us here. So, we were 11th. Ironically, after a draw, we were the highest we would be in the Premier League that season. After a loss, after Arsenal, after Southampton, um, Southampton, United, Brighton, and Spurs. This leaves us at the bottom of the Premier League at this moment in time. So, what do Leicester do? Well, we have one game against our local rivals, Nottingham Forest, where it was on a Monday night. This was the game where if Brendan Rodgers didn't win, he would have been sacked and we would have got in Thomas Frank. One game away from Thomas Frank. Leicester City turned up and win 4-0 on the day. But Forest were very close to taking a 1-0 lead. And I think if they do, everything changes. But such is life. Such is life. We get a couple of goals through. Patson Dak gets a goal. Jamie Vardy gets a goal. James Maddison gets a goal in this game as well. And we're thinking, okay, we've got a little bit of a blip now. We come off the bottom. If Forest win that game, the points would have stretched a little bit more. And it was at the time it was Forest, Wolves, and Aston Villa all towards the bottom of the Premier League table. And we won that game 4-0. Part of that was the occasion. The fans played a huge part in that as well. The team turned up, but only after we managed to get that first goal. Then we really got into momentum. But you can't keep relying. Our slow start nearly punched again our first clean sheet of the season at that moment in time. Then you're thinking, okay, we've got a win, thank God. But considering the previous, we've got 1 point from the previous 7. Now we're 8 games in, we've got 4. Still not great. And you can go back and check the record for our lives and our videos on the games as well. Next thing we've got is Bournemouth, where we went 1-0 up and defensively capitulated, lost 2-1. Back in the mud once again. So it was just not good enough. And then after that, I was getting absolutely annoyed with football at this moment in time. Palace was at home next, and it was one of the dullest games I've ever seen. Leicester were poor, Crystal Palace were poor. Both teams were just rubbish in that game as well. 0-0 draw, one of the worst performances I've ever seen, and I was tempted to give up content right there. Palace did have a good squad. They had Zaha, they had Eze, they had a good squad, and so did we. There was a little bit of hurrying, but there was just points are what keep people in the Premier League, and it's what's dropped us out of the Premier League. We didn't create our own luck. We didn't create our own. It was a lot of energy, but not a lot of final product, not a lot of shots on target. We're coming into a game later on where we'll talk about, we'll get into that a little bit later. The next game we have at home, Leeds. 2-0, we managed to win that game and quite a comfortable performance overall. We're thinking, okay, after we beat Forest, we drew to Palace, we beat Leeds, we're starting to like climb up the table, we're getting some momentum. And then we go to Wolves away and we win 4-0. Fun fact for that one, we had 4 shots on target, all of them go in. A crazy screamer from Tillemans. Again, you can go back to the watch. I can't play that because of copyright reasons, but it's worth looking at. Phenomenal first goal for that one. And it was good to be a Leicester fan, to feel good about Leicester City. Jamie Vardy was on the score sheet. We thought this was the beginning of the run for Jamie Vardy. Wasn't to be. And after that, we go to play at home to Man City. And in that one, we were shocking. We were really good, actually. Can't say we were shocking. Shocking that it comes bits later on in this one. I'm so used to saying we were shocking because most defensively we were shocking. We actually put up a performance. We played well. We played the back 5. So Yunchu started for the first time. We played a 3 at the back, wing backs, and we didn't quite break them down. Pass and Daka came on. We could have nicked something, but I was so happy with the way we performed against a phenomenal team in Man City with so much depth. And we put up the fight for that. Even though we lost, I left with my head held high. And at the end of the day, as a football fan, that's what you want. The fact that your team leaves everything on the pitch and you lose, that's all we can ask for. Up to this point and up to especially the first 7 games, we've seen complacency. We've seen not being bothered. They didn't really want to play for the badge. They just were too easy. The mentality was weak. The manager kept making excuses. In that one, we actually played back 3 with Sionchu, and we played great. We kept Man City out. It took an unbelievable free kick, a world-class goal from Kevin De Bruyne for them to win the game. And towards the end, we could have nicked it. Kelechi Iheanacho and Daka had some chances when they paired up nicely together, thinking this 2 up front could really, really work. But Jamie Vardy didn't really do too much in the game, which is totally fine because we had people off the bench. And we just need to keep the momentum up. The next game I did manage to watch, we managed to go to Everton away and put in for what I heard a comfortable performance. 2-0, another clean sheet for Leicester City. And a solid performance for, I think, majority of the game from what I heard. Against Frank Lampard's team, who wasn't going to be there the next time we played them. And 2-0 comfortable win. And another game that was actually quite close, but Leicester winning 2-0 into West Ham just before we go for the World Cup break. West Ham in this case was such a good team. They played us, but they just couldn't convert. So many opportunities like that's going in, and they headed it wide. They hit the post. They just couldn't finish. They played aggressive football that they continued to play for the rest of the season, which ended up keeping them in the league at this period of time. West Ham 2-0, and we're thinking at this point, going back to that graphic, after game week 13, I believe, we're coming into this one going, right, we're in a good position at this moment in time. Again, game week 13, we're up to 14th, 13th position, and we're going, right, this is the time to turn it around. This is just after the World Cup, so it's a nice time to kind of break at this period of time. Leicester City, we're on a little bit of a run, but as you can see, you know what happens next. You know what the spoiler is as part of this as well. In this World Cup break, obviously there was no transfer window happening. There was other players at different countries playing fantastically for their clubs and their teams internationally. And we come back on a bit of a high thinking, okay, we could do something. The next game we come back to after the World Cup, Newcastle, where they absolutely smashed us. 3-0. Should have been more. It was one of the most one-sided games I've ever seen in my life. We play them again in the cup later on, but I'm not going to mention the cups here as well because that's just going to make me even more sad. Then after that, Newcastle plays off the park. That was the time as well that Gonzalez, Nicolas Gonzalez was linked to us, and Leicester fans getting really excited. And the news that came to absolutely nothing. Then we play against a really weak Liverpool team. Walt Fast puts 2 goals in his own net. Again, Leicester played okay in the game. Leicester played well. In the midfield, we controlled the ball. Liverpool were weak, were really, really weak. And we had nothing to answer it apart from Walt Fast's 2 on goals. Now, this is the thing that's going to be remembered at Walt Fast. So how can he replace Fofana? Has he got not good enough? It was considering the amount of money we had and the player that we were trying to replace. I think Walt Fast was not bad idea of a person we needed. And it was such a short turnaround between the transfer window closing, him leaving, Fana leaving, us bringing in Fast as well. And that Liverpool game was just Liverpool fans going, how on earth did we win that? And we've had a few of them this season where a team has not been good enough. Again, Chelsea, again, Liverpool being another one where they were terrible and we still lost to them. And this is where we start to stagnate a little bit around this period of time. So again, coming into this game, looking at, we start to stagnate coming into these four kind of games. Even though we lose, other people around us started to lose as well. So it didn't make us look too bad. After that, Fulham 1-0. Fulham played fantastically. Shout out to Henry, who, again, Fulham battled. Leicester City tried only after the 60th minute. We need to go from minute 1. They were happy. Fulham came and we made it too easy. We tried it. It didn't really work. It was coming into the new year. Brendan Rodgers is just saying the same old nonsense over and over again. We need a refresh. We need a refresh. It's a time that the winter transfer window was open as well. And just bad performance all around. We tried, but this is just a bit meaty. After that, we've got Fulham. We've got Forest. Another game, a big game towards the bottom of the table. We got absolutely. We were both poor. One of the worst performances from both sides in the first half. The second half, Brendan Johnson showed up, and Leicester City didn't. The Forest fans got on top of them, and they just went and absolutely smashed us. 2-0. Can't really say too much else apart from that as well. And after that, we had a Brighton. Again, Brighton at this moment under Zerbi flying, doing really, really well. And the 2-2 draw that they had with us was just a bit flat and a bit boring. And Ferguson was just starting to get into the Premier League at that point. And we were just not good enough at all. Bit boring, bit flat, never really had a couple of goals that kind of like, oh, how did that go in? Fantastic, we got a goal. And after that, we had the transfer window. And we managed to sign a few players that we'll bring it into the next game. But we were all over the place. At this moment in time, we're hanging around mid-table. We just started to fall a little bit, but at that time we had lost. So coming into that, after that, we'd lost one to Newcastle, one to Liverpool, one to Fulham, one to Forest. 4 games in a row that we'd lost, and a draw to Brighton. So this is again a point where we started to slip slightly down the table, getting towards that point. I think we dropped to about 15th. Again, the complacency, the board, the fact they didn't come out and say anything when Brendan Rodgers was coming out and throwing them under the bus time and time again, the players, the board, and they said nothing. Then we actually get some transfers in. We get in Harry Souttar, we get in Christensen, and we get in Tete. Souttar was the last day of the season. Again, it came true. Looked like a good player. I still think he'll be with us going forward, but again, looks like a good player there. You've got the likes of Tete, who I'll mention in the next game as well, and Christensen, who when he came into the game looked absolutely phenomenal. Looked so good. And the game in particular was Villa. So recently taken over by Unai Emery. 4-2. Tete gets a golden assist and looks absolutely brilliant. We're gonna sign this player. I've never seen a player have a better debut than Tete. If anybody knows one, leave it in the comments. I'm trying to think. James Maddison, where he missed, I think, for the 1-0 that we lost to Man United when we had Claude Puel. It was a very even game. We just put away our chances better than Villa, and Villa had then gone on and then obviously went and got Europe after that, even better. But with Aston Villa, we were thinking, right, we've turned a corner. These players have come in, just like when Walt Fast came in for the 4-0. We looked stronger. We looked defensively better. We knew what we were doing in that position as well. And I'm getting distracted because my laptop's about to die. Just plug it in now. Apologies. And then after that, you've got there's probably the highlight of the season at that point. Feeling excited, feel like, right, these individuals, and I made a performance on that. I made an individual review where it's worth going and having a look at how good. And it reminded me, this is what the team, the ground in the Villa Park was electric and bouncing. Then coming into Spurs, 4-0, 4-1. I think we won in that game overall. I think Bentancur scored, and I think that was his last game actually as well. We played good football. We dominated a really poor Tottenham side. And I thought, here we go again. Here's our opportunity to really shine, to kick on to the next level. And we're talking about down, blip, down, blip. Very, very minimal. Then we've got, after that, Man United without Casemiro. And we were good for the first 20, 30 minutes. Sabitzer puts in an awful tackle. I can't remember on who to try and should have been sent off. But we just capitulated. We did 1 goal, 2 goals, 3 goals. And then and bearing in mind, they had a game midweek. They've got another European final that they were saving up for. And what did they get for it? Nothing. They started bringing on 17-year-olds. They were that confident. They were like, yeah, we just rest our players now. And we had zero to show for it. That's the thing. Losing to Man United isn't the problem. It's how you lose. And the fact that they've gone, easy enough for us. We're going to go and relax and chill now after 3-0. We're thinking, oh, God, here we go again. Another game that I want to end on as well for the part three. For part two, sorry. Arsenal 1-0. 0 shots on target. And asking Arsenal fans going down and meeting AFTV and the crew as well, they were like, we were poor, but you lot were terrible. And they were so happy that they came to us and we had no fight, no mentality, no desire, no nothing, no idea that we were going to. They were just like, yeah, whatever. Just give up. And this is 2/3 of the way into the season. They're like, yeah, we give up. We're not going to play. Didn't really do anything. We hustled a bit around, or we put the ball away, but there's nothing really to shout about. This mentality has stunk out for a long time. We've got a couple of players in. Top came out in part one and said, well, we're financially a little bit in trouble. And now he's saying some other stuff as well. We'll get into that probably in another video. But again, this is part two if you're interested. We've got part three coming where we're going to talk about the end of the season. We're eventually relegated. Spoiler alert if you didn't realize. We're going through each individual result again, apart from the EFL Cup and the FA Cup. And we'll do another vision on top statement and what that means as well. So tune to part three. Click here for part three. Click here. Hopefully I'll get it right for the statement overview from top. We'll see you all in the next video.